The desert wind howled across the red planet's surface, lifting clouds of fine sand into the air. It was dry, hot, endless. Most men hated working here. But Grant Hale, the human foreman, was not like most men. He stood at the edge of the latest dig site, hands on his hips, sweat on his brow. The ground crew was deep in the hole now, machines digging, drills humming, scanners beeping. Something strange was buried here. The scanners said it was metal, but Grant knew better. "Sir," a voice called from below. "We've found something." Grant slid down the slope, boots kicking dust. The crew had cleared a large space. In the center, half covered by rock and sand, was a massive curved surface. Dark, dirty, and shining faintly. Under the sun, it wasn't a ship, it wasn't a machine, it looked alive. "Careful," Grant ordered. "Don't dig too fast, it's not junk." A young worker stared at it. "It's huge. Is it breathing?" Grant knelt beside it, pressing. His hand to the surface, it was warm, and yes, he could feel a soft rhythm. Slow, faint, a heartbeat. Up on the ridge above them, someone watched. A figure in a long cloak, standing perfectly still. A woman. Tall, with pale green skin and silver eyes that shimmered like moonlight. She stared, down at the digging crew, and at what they had uncovered. Her lips parted as she whispered to herself, "No, not now. Not yet. You fools have awakened her." By sunset, the crew had cleared more of the body. They uncovered a long, spiked tail coated in thick mud and hardened scale. Huge wings, folded tightly like broken sails, peeked out from the sand. 2. Massive claws, each as long as a small truck, stretched toward the surface, and a head, not a skull, not a fossil, a dragon's head. Her mouth was closed, but sharp teeth were visible under cracked lips. Her horns were chipped. Her body was dry and dull like rusted armor. But even in this broken state, she looked powerful. Wild. Ancient. That night, the camp buzzed with noise. Scientists scanned her. Techs tried to talk about what species she belonged to. Soldiers asked if they should shoot it, just in case. Grant stood near her resting form, silent. She hadn't moved. She hadn't opened her eyes. But something in his gut told him she was listening. Suddenly, a voice came from the shadows. "She is not yours to touch." Grant turned sharply. The cloaked alien woman stood near the dragon's front claw. "No one gave you permission to awaken her," she said. Grant didn't reach for his weapon. He raised a hand in peace. "I didn't know what we were digging. I'm just a foreman, a worker." She stepped forward slowly. "She has been asleep for over 2,000 years, sealed beneath stone and silence, buried so she could not burn the sky again." Grant raised an eyebrow. "She's dangerous?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "She was a protector once. Until betrayal. Until chains. Until even the stars forgot her name." Grant looked at the dragon. "She doesn't look dangerous. Now she looks tired." The alien woman knelt beside the creature. She reached out and gently placed her hand on the dragon's snout. "She is called Irixa, last of her line, and she is more than beast or weapon." "Then what is she?" Grant asked softly. The woman looked up at him. "She is my ancestor. And if you truly woke her," she stood, "then you must help her remember what she was." Grant frowned. "How?" The woman's voice dropped. "She has not been touched with care in 2,000 years. Her body is covered in filth and rust. Her pride sleeps under dirt and time. You must clean her, not with machines, not with fire, but with your hands." Grant looked at the massive beast again. Her cracked wings, her broken armor, her dry, forgotten skin. He nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Then I'll start in the morning." The woman's eyes widened. "You would touch her?" Grant shrugged. "I've cleaned worse. Besides, everyone deserves a second chance." Behind him, the dragon's body rose slightly, almost like a breath. But she didn't wake. Not yet. Morning came with burning skies. On this desert planet, the sun didn't rise. It exploded across the horizon in bright red and gold. Grant Hale stood at the base of the dig site holding a metal pail filled with warm water and soft cloths. Around him, machines buzzed, drones hovered, and scientists shouted into comms, but none of them got too close to the creature. The dragon. Grant looked at her, still half buried in sand and stone. Her name, the alien woman said, was Irixa. She had slept for 2,000 years. No one had touched her with kindness in all that time. Grant stepped forward. The ground was quiet. He dipped a cloth in water and gently pressed it to the hardened skin near her eye. The mud didn't move at first, but after a second wipe, a small patch of ancient golden scale peeked through. He smiled. "There you are." Behind him, the science team watched from a safe distance. One woman whispered, "He's actually touching it?" "Crazy human," another muttered. "Shouldn't we be using high-pressure jets?" They tried. Later that morning, they brought in the cleaning drones, small machines with laser brushes and dissolvers. The first drone hovered over Irixa's body. Its lights flickered. Its arm extended. Then, crack. The drone exploded in midair. Shards flew everywhere. Sparks rained down. Grant dropped his cloth and covered his head. The other drones backed away automatically. Irixa didn't move an inch. Grant stood, brushing dirt off his shoulders. He looked at the scientists. Guess she didn't like that. The cloaked alien woman appeared at the top of the ridge again. She called down calmly, "I told you she responds only to those who show care." Grant grabbed a new cloth. "Good. That means I'm still the only one she tolerates." By the third hour, Grant had uncovered more of her head. The dull gray was giving way to a deep bronze. Her horns weren't broken. They were just covered in soot and dried blood from centuries ago. As he scrubbed around the side of her jaw, he noticed something strange. Her skin was warmer, and the rhythm under his palm was stronger. A heartbeat. Clearer, now. He leaned close and whispered, "Still with me, girl?" The great dragon's eye twitched, just a little. Back at the camp, the scientists were panicking. They ran scans, checked vitals, argued with command. One of them shouted into a comm, "She's showing signs of neural activity, but only when he's near her," another replied. "That makes no sense, he's not bonded to her." But the alien woman only smiled. "You do not need blood to make a bond," she said softly. "Sometimes you just need respect." Grant didn't hear any of it. He was too focused. Every hour he moved a little further, cleaning her wings, polishing her tail, brushing off ancient chains that had rusted into her body like scars. He never asked for help, and she never flinched under his hand. By sunset, half her body gleamed faintly in the dying light. A golden glow now ran across her back, shining through the dust. And then, just as Grant rinsed another cloth in the bucket, he heard a sound, a low rumble. Soft. Deep. He turned fast. The dragon's eye was open. Only one. But it was staring right at him. His breath caught. He froze. Everyone else had gone silent. Even the wind stopped. She didn't speak. Didn't roar. She just looked at him, unblinking, unmoving, watching. Grant stepped closer. He didn't know why. Maybe he was stupid. Maybe brave. Maybe both. He placed a hand on her forehead, warm and smooth. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. "Just here to clean the dirt away." For a second he thought she might rise, snap, burn him alive. But instead, her eye closed again. Slow. Peaceful. The alien woman walked down into the pit beside him. "She sees you." Grant turned. "I think I saw her too." "You don't understand what that means," she said. "Then tell me." "She hasn't opened her eyes for any living thing in 2,000 years. Not even me." Grant wiped sweat from his brow. "So why now?" The woman looked at the golden scales, now shining under the stars, because for the first time in her life someone didn't see her as a monster. The next day, Grant Hale came to the pit early, long before the scientists, before the machines started humming. before anyone could interfere. The desert was quiet, still dark, just stars above and the soft glow of morning beginning at the edge of the sky. And her Irixa, the ancient alien dragon, still curled in the sand, still watching. He brought 2 buckets this time, one with warm water, the other with soap made from plant oils. Human soap. Smells like mint, he muttered. Hope, you don't mind. She didn't growl, didn't blink. He took that as a good sign. Grant didn't speak for a while. He worked carefully, cleaning the thick plates along her long neck, rinsing sand from between her folded wings, scrubbing deep scratches that looked older than any war, still remembered by history. Each scale he cleaned revealed color. Deep bronze, golden veins, flickers of purple like energy trapped under glass. She wasn't just old. She was beautiful. By mid-morning, the alien woman appeared again. She stood on the ledge, arms crossed. You've uncovered more of her in 2 days, she said, than an entire team did in 5 years. Grant didn't stop working. She's not a thing to uncover. She's a someone. The woman walked down slowly, stepping around bones, sand, and old metal bindings. She reached out and touched one of Irix's now clean scales. She was feared, she whispered. Not because she destroyed them, but because she remembered. Grant looked up. Remembered what? The woman's eyes met his. That dragons once flew to protect, that their loyalty was earned, not forced, that humans long ago were friends, not masters. Grant paused, then nodded. Then let's make sure she remembers that again. Later, as the sun climbed higher, Grant noticed something strange. Every time he moved to a new part of her body, Irixa shifted slightly, ever so small, guiding him where she needed the cleaning most, not with words but with soft pressure. A breath, a twitch of her wing. At one point, she lifted a claw slightly, letting him reach beneath it. He laughed quietly. Thanks for the help, he said. The scientists didn't laugh. They had gathered above the pit, recording everything. She's responding to verbal commands, one muttered. No, said another. He's not giving her commands, she's choosing to react. A third scientist frowned. That's worse. That night Grant stayed after everyone else left. He sat on a crate near her massive shoulder. Don't know if you can understand. Me, he said softly. But I think you know what I'm doing. He dipped a brush in the soap. You've been locked up, forgotten, covered in dirt and old pain. People looked at you like a monster. But now they see you glow. He leaned back, wiping sweat from his forehead. I get it, you know, that feeling. Being used up. Left behind. He looked at her golden skin. You're not alone anymore. Then, without warning, a sound. Deep. Low. A slow, rumbling purr. It shook the sand around him. The crates, the brush, even the air. But it wasn't a threat, it was peace. She purred, like a giant cat. Grant's eyes widened. You're kidding me. She purred louder. Grant laughed. Now that's something no one's gonna believe. The next morning, the alien woman stood beside the dragon's head. She's never made that sound before, she said. Grant grinned. I think she likes bath time. The woman studied Irix's movements. She listens when you speak. You clean her, and she responds. Why? Grant shrugged. Because I didn't ask for anything in return. Later, Grant placed his hand over her heart, not to clean, just to feel. And her heart was strong now, alive, awake. The chain scars were healing. The dull scales were glowing. And the great dragon that hadn't moved in 2,000 years stretched one wing slowly into the sky. Gasps echoed from the cliffside. One scientist dropped their scanner. The wing rose higher, blocking the sun for a moment. Then it folded again. But that was enough. She was waking up. For real. Grant sat down, stunned. I didn't do that, he said. The alien woman replied, No. But your hands reminded her what she was. Not a tool, Not a beast, but something greater. She turned to Erixa, spoke in a soft, ancient language, then whispered to Grant. She said, "Your name feels safe." The storm came without warning. No clouds, no thunder, no rain, just metal. The enemy ship broke through the atmosphere like a knife through fabric, silent and black. No lights, no flags, no signals. But everyone in the camp felt it. The ground trembled before its engines even touched the dirt. And from her resting place in the sand, Erixa, the ancient dragon, stirred. Grant Hale dropped his tool mid-wipe. The silver cloth fluttered to the ground. He looked up, heart already racing. "That's not one of ours." The alien woman appeared beside him, her voice low and sharp. "Those are scrap lords, raiders, hunters of ancient things." She gritted her teeth. "They've come for her." Camp alarms wailed. Guards scrambled to grab weapons. The science crew panicked. Some tried to flee. Others shouted into comms. But signals were jammed. The black ship landed in the distance, and a ramp unfolded. Out came tall, shadow-like figures with armor like shattered glass. They moved slow, confident. One held a glowing spear. Another dragged a cage behind him. Empty. Waiting. Grant ran to Erixa's side. Her golden scales were dulling again. She was breathing harder, like something in her ancient memory screamed danger. Grant placed his hand on her forehead. "It's okay, I'm here." He turned to the alien woman. "Can she fight?" "She hasn't moved in 2,000 years." Grant gritted his teeth. "Then we fight for her." But as he stepped forward, her wing moved, not slowly this time, but strong, powerful, awake. The raiders stopped walking. One raised a scanner. "Energy spike detected. Target is active." Another hissed. "Impossible. She's ancient." They stepped forward, weapons up. That was their mistake. Erixa rose. Sand poured off her back like a waterfall. The earth cracked beneath her claws. Wings that had once shaded cities unfurled into the sky, wide as a fortress. The air burned with golden heat, and then she opened both eyes. Every living creature went still. Even the wind stopped. And then she roared. It was not a sound, it was a force. It tore through the camp, rippled across the sand, shattered every drone in the air. The raiders stumbled back, covering their ears. One fell to his knees, another screamed, but Grant stood tall, hands at his sides, because her roar didn't hurt him. It shook the skies, but it left him standing. He was not her target, he was her reason. The lead raider shouted, "Capture it, now!" 3 of them charged forward with plasma nets and pulse anchors. Erixa didn't run. She didn't burn them. She shielded Grant with her wings. Their nets bounced off her scales like dust on a mountain, and for the first time, the raiders hesitated. "She's protecting the human? She's bonded. That's not possible." The alien woman stepped forward now. Her voice rose like a bell across the chaos. "She doesn't bond by chain. She bonds by choice, and she has chosen the one who restored her." Erixa stepped forward. Each footfall shook the world. She didn't attack, didn't kill, she just walked. Calm, controlled. But every step made the raiders fall back. One fired a shot. A pulse beam struck her wing and vanished. The shooter dropped his gun in disbelief. I saw the blast disappear." Grant stepped out from behind her. No weapon can touch what's protected by honor. The raiders ran, they didn't fight. They fled because no army can match the rage of a creature who remembers her name. And Erixa remembered, because one human cleaned away the dirt and saw the soul beneath. Afterward, the camp was silent. No one moved, no one spoke. The scientists stared. The guards lowered their rifles, and Erixa, she lowered her head beside Grant, rested it gently near his feet. Her great eye blinked once, then twice. Like a thank you, Grant sat down beside her, brushing dust from her jaw. "I guess you can still fight." The alien woman knelt beside them. "You gave her back her skin. But more than that, you gave her back her dignity." That night, as the stars returned, Irixa curled around the camp like a sleeping mountain. Guards didn't stand watch. They didn't need to. No one would attack them now, not while she was there. Grant sat beside, a small fire, tired, bruised, but smiling. Nara, yes, that was finally the alien woman's name, handed him a cup of hot leaf brew. She watches you even now, she said softly. Grant looked over. The dragon's golden eye was open and calm. Yeah, he whispered, I know the feeling. The desert was still, but not silent. Every breath that came from Irixa, the ancient alien dragon, echoed across the sand like a slow, powerful wave. She had returned, not as a weapon, not as a monster, but as herself, a being of strength, memory, and now, choice. The battle was over. The raiders were gone. But something even bigger had happened. She had risen for a human. That night, the camp became something else. No longer just a dig site, not a battlefield, not a lab. It became a home for a dragon, a foreman, and an alien woman whose people had long been lost to time. Grant sat by a fire, sharpening his old tool blade. Not because it needed sharpening, but because he needed time to think. Nara sat beside him, wrapping her fingers around a steaming mug of spice brew. Her silver eyes reflected the firelight. She hasn't stopped watching you, she said. Grant glanced toward Irixa. The great dragon lay a few yards away, curled into a ring of her own wings, but one golden eye remained open, calm, watching. I keep waiting for her to start talking, Grant joked. She already does, Nara replied. You just don't speak her language. Nara leaned forward, voice quieter. Long ago, dragons didn't serve kings or armies. They served balance. They chose their riders based on courage, not blood. Grant tilted his head. Riders? Nara smiled faintly. You didn't just clean her scales, Grant. You cleaned away the years of shame, and she saw something in you. Grant looked down at his hands, calloused, scarred, greasy. I'm just a worker, he muttered. A foreman with a busted back and rusty tools. Nara leaned closer. You're a man who treated a forgotten creature like she was worth saving. That's more than any king ever did. The next day, Irixa moved again, not to defend, but to explore. She walked slowly through the sand, testing her strength, dragging her wings like curtains of gold behind her. She stopped near the garden unit. Tiny. Plants grown by humans for fresh air and food. She lowered her head and sniffed the flowers. Grant laughed. She likes roses? She used to burn forests, Nara said. Maybe she's tired of burning. That evening, Grant and Nara sat with an old book from the alien archives. One Nara had saved from her home planet before it was lost. Inside were drawings. Dragons flying above twin moons. Dragons sleeping beside temples. Dragons curled around young alien children like protectors. Nara turned a page. There, sketched in dark ink, was a picture of a dragon with a human on her back. Grant leaned in. That real? Nara nodded slowly. You are not the first, but you may be the last to earn her trust again. As the sun fell, Irixa approached them. Quiet. Careful. She lowered her giant head beside Grant again, just like after the battle. But this time, she didn't rest it on the ground, she rested it in his lap. Grant froze, then placed a hand on her warm scales. He felt her heart beat through her skin, slow and steady. He smiled. Big girl, he said softly. You're full of surprises. Nara watched with wonder. Tears shimmered in her eyes. She was chained like a monster for 2,000 years, she whispered. And now she chooses to sleep beside a man who once smelled like engine oil and iron. Grant chuckled. I still smell like that. Nara laughed too. So did Irixa. Not a roar, not a growl, just a soft rumble from deep in her chest and under The stars in a camp that used to be cold and noisy, something rare grew. Peace. Not because the enemy was gone, but because 3 broken lives had found a reason to heal, together. 3 days passed in peace. Irixa, once buried beneath centuries of silence, now walked freely across the desert sands. Her wings caught sunlight like sails made of fire. Children from nearby camps whispered stories about the gentle dragon with gold eyes. Even the grumpy engineers began leaving her offerings: metal scraps, fruit, clean water. She didn't need them, but she always acknowledged them, with a blink, a nod, or a soft rumble in her throat. Grant spent his mornings cleaning what remained of her tail armor, polishing it like he was restoring a monument. Nara kept translating the ancient texts, teaching Irixa old songs in her own language. Every day the bond grew stronger. But not everyone was happy. Peace never lasts on a world where power sleeps too long. It happened at sunrise. A ship broke orbit over the planet, a massive silver vessel with black banners across its wings. Not a raider, not a pirate. No alarms were triggered, but the moment it appeared, Irixa stopped moving. She stood still as a statue, neck raised, nostrils flared. Grant noticed it immediately. "What is it?" he asked. She didn't answer, but her tail curled inward, like a beast preparing for pain. Nara stepped beside Grant, eyes wide. "I know that mark," she whispered. "That's a high custodian ship. Friend or enemy?" Nara's voice was tight. "They are the ones who chained her." The ship hovered, just above the canyon ridge, silent. Then a voice echoed, not through speakers, but through every communicator, every data pad, every piece of tech within 5 kilometers. "To the Terran crew, you have awakened and unlawfully bonded with entity designate 9R4. Step away from the creature. Surrender her for collection. She is not yours." Irixa snarled softly, not in anger, in pain. Memories were returning. Chains, needles, being labeled, not named, left in dark silence. And now, they had come to erase her again. Grant turned toward the dragon. "Irixa," he said, "tell me what you want." She looked at him, both eyes glowing now. There was no confusion, no fear, only a silent plea. "Don't let them take me." He faced the ship's shadow above. "She's not going anywhere," he said into his comm. The reply came instantly. "Resistance will mark you as a threat. You have 1 hour to comply." The camp went into lockdown. The science crew panicked. Soldiers prepped weapons. Officers whispered about protocols and surrender. Nara moved quickly to Grant's side. "They'll use sleep gas. They'll shut down your gear. They'll fire without warning if she moves." Grant gritted his teeth. "Then we keep her awake, and we make sure they remember who she is." He walked out into the center of the sand clearing where Irixa stood, wings tucked in, shaking quietly. He placed both hands on her face. "You don't have to run," he whispered. "Not this time." She closed her eyes. One tear, a drop of glowing golden light, ran down her cheek. Exactly 1 hour later, a single drone descended from the ship. Smooth, shining, unarmed, it hovered 10 feet above the ground. "This is your final warning. Move away from Subject 9R4. Grant stepped forward, staring straight into the drone's lens. "She has a name," he said. "Say it." "Request invalid." "Say her name." The drone paused, then replied coldly. "Subject, Irixa, classified as failed biocatalyst. Emotional responses deemed non-functional. Memory decay protocol was successful." Irixa growled now, low and deadly. "She remembers everything," Grant said. "You failed to erase her, and now she's not your tool anymore. You will be removed." "No," came another voice. Nara stepped beside him. "She will not be removed. She will choose. That is the law of the old blood, and you know it." The drone rose in silence. A long pause followed. Then, the ship above them pulsed once, its engines humming louder. Acknowledged. We will return when she forgets her place again. And just like that, the ship vanished into the clouds. Silence. Returned. Grant let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Irixa lowered her head again. Gently, softly. Grant touched her neck. You okay? She nudged him with the tip of her snout, warm and heavy. Then, for the first time, she spoke. Not in words, not out loud, but in his mind. I will never forget again. The desert was different now. No more alarms. No more dust storms. No more chains. Irixa, the dragon once forgotten, now stood tall under open skies. Her scales gleamed in the morning sun, no longer dull with age or rust, but alive with bronze, fire and lines of gold that pulsed gently beneath the surface. The crew had begun to understand something deeper. They weren't guarding a relic. They were standing beside a returning queen. It had been 2 days since the custodian ship retreated. 2 days of silence, as if the sky itself was deciding whether to challenge her again. But they didn't return. They had seen what she'd become, and more importantly, who had chosen to stand beside her. Nara sat beside a new stone monument carved into the canyon wall. On it, etched in both Terran and Old Drakari, were the words, "She was buried but not broken. She was chained but not tamed. Now she remembers." Grant Hale stood at the edge of the dig site, arms folded, watching Irixa move. She was stretching now, full wingspan out, tail curved behind her like a fallen banner. Every movement was smooth, quiet but filled with strength. "She's ready," Nara said, stepping up beside him. Grant nodded. "Yeah, I feel it too." Nara gave him a look. "She wants you to ride with her." Grant blinked. "What?" "She says the sky remembers. But she wants you to see it for the first time." It felt like a dream. Straps were placed. Armor fitted. Not on her, on him. Grant, the greasy foreman, the tool slinger, the man who once thought glory was for other people, now stood beside a dragon. Irixa lowered her body slowly, one wing acting as a ramp. He walked up, step by step, heart pounding. The moment his hand touched her back, something warm shot through his body. Not fire, not fear. Something like recognition. He climbed up to the platform between her shoulders. Nara stepped onto the lower harness just behind him, no saddles. No control wires, just trust, just balance, just her. The sky waited, and Irixa leapt. The wind hit him like a wave of sound. The desert spun below, tiny, broken, quiet. His heart raced as the horizon bent, and stars blinked through the thinnest layer of sky. She soared higher, faster, no jets, no engines. Just muscle, memory, majesty. Grant laughed. Not a small chuckle. A loud, full, childlike laugh that burst from his chest. Nara laughed too. Even Irixa made a deep, booming hum in her throat, a joyful growl that rolled across the air like a distant drumbeat. They passed clouds that hadn't been touched in centuries. They glided above glassy lakes that shimmered with untouched starlight. They flew past rock arches, over glowing trees, through pockets of wild lightning, and all of it felt like freedom. Hours later, they returned to the ridge. She landed gently. No thud, no dust storm, just a soft slide into the sand. Grant stepped down, boots unsteady. His legs wobbled, his heart still beat fast. "You okay?" Nara asked, holding his arm. He nodded. "I think I left half my fear in the clouds." Irixa bowed her head again, and this time she spoke aloud, not with words from a mouth but from within. Everyone in the camp heard it. A deep voice, beautiful and broken, echoing softly inside their thoughts. "You gave me your hands. You gave me your trust. Now I give you my name." Grant blinked. I already know your name. No, she replied. You knew the name they called me. Now I give you the name I chose. She looked at Nara, then at the sky. I am Vel Irixa, she who rises from ashes, and you, Grant Hale, are the one who called me back. Silence again. Not empty, but full. The kind of silence people hold before clapping, before crying, before remembering. The science crew bowed. The guards saluted. The engineers removed their helmets, and Grant, he just smiled. Tired, proud, small, but seen. That evening, Nara approached Grant with a sealed tablet. What's this? Official offer, she said. Command wants to turn the site into a historical sanctuary. They want you to run it. Me? Grant frowned. I'm not a historian. No. But you're the only one she listens to. He looked at Irixa, now curled like a hill at the edge of the camp, eyes closed, heart open, alive. I'll do it, he said. But only if the story starts with the truth. Nara tilted her head. Which is? Grant looked up at the stars. That the first thing I ever cleaned here was a dragon's face, and the last thing she gave me was the sky. That night, as the moons rose over the dunes, the people of the camp sang the old songs Nara had taught them, songs that hadn't been heard in thousands of years, and Irixa hummed softly in the background, her voice low, like thunder rolling just beyond the stars. She was no longer a story. She was no longer a prisoner. She was legend reborn,